who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing. This is World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hello!
Oh my God! Hello! Yay!
Or is it hell no?
Hell no!
Halloween!
Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, we all dressed up this morning, right? Well, you know, each week we're here, we're counting down the top 10 things that make us go, wow. Except this week it's the top 10 things that make us go, woo.
Whoa.
Tom Campbell, Chief Creative Officer of World of Wonder.
Hello.
James St. James.
That's me.
Literary darling. Ooh. And I'm Fenner Bailey, co-founder of World of Wonder. So let's jump in, right? Number 10.
Number 10.
Okay, this made me go wow this week. Did you guys happen to catch the George Michael doc on Showtime?
You know, I didn't, and it's so weird because I have some sort of memory of having seen a George Michael doc.
Well, I think there have been a couple. There's been a behind the VH1 special
Maybe that was
thing.
it.
Maybe. But it's worth seeing. I'm going to be kind of critical of it because I'm a gay man of a certain age. I feel very close to George Michael. He's the exact same age, actually. And it's worth seeing. It definitely, on the surface level, it reminds you of the beauty of his music, the artistry of his voice. Amazing.
And all of those songs take you back to us. Every single one, it takes you to a certain place in your life. Yes.
And you realize, you know, in his Wham phase, he always wanted to be famous, and he sort of found the formula for writing pop songs that were super catchy. I remember in college when it was like Wham and those short shorts and those,
it's waking up before you go.
And it was like there's gay life out there.
Club Tropicana for me when I saw him in a white Speedo. Yes.
And we talked about it, but we weren't out about it, or I wasn't. But, you know, at that same time in college, in that early part of Wham, AIDS came into the spectrum. And I always felt, in my life anyway, that it sort of made everybody talk less about gay. It was sort of like, we're not going to talk about it quite so much.
We went back in the closet for a half second.
A little bit,
yes. A little bit, until ACT UP came along.
Yes, as an 18, 19-year-old. And, you know, and then the best concert I've ever been to is the Faith concert, for sure.
Wow. And you've been to a lot of concerts,
I've been to a lot of concerts. And I was shrieking like a little girl. He was so sexy. His music was so good. His voice was so powerful. And they show clips of him in concert. It's around 88. And it's amazing. This documentary, it starts off with Kate Moss saying this is George's final work. He is listed as co-director.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets weird.
Right.
Because it's sort of like, how many people do autobiographical documentaries?
About themselves. Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
It would have been a weird, regardless of whether he had passed or not.
Right.
It feels a little bit like self-mythologizing.
But there's the essence of the George Michael problem.
That he walks away from the fame, and yet he can't let go.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And that's the frustration. Personally, as a little gay boy, I was so angry because I had the best time of my life at the Faith concert. I was just playing "I Knew You Were Waiting" by Aretha Franklin before we started, and he filled me with so much joy. And then he walked away. And in the documentary, it explains a little bit things that I kind of suspected or we already knew, but it didn't go super deep either. And basically,
well, of course it didn't.
I know.
Well, you see, that's the thing. I saw this other George Michael documentary, also written, authored, directed by George Michael, and he's such a crashing bore when talking about him. When talking about himself, he's so
he's
pompous.
a bit pompous. Yes, he is a bit.
And Andrew Ridgely, who looks kind of like fun, just gets short shrift and shoved out of the way.
But you know, to George's eternal, good faith or whatever, he did provide for Andrew Ridgely by giving him songwriting credit so that he would be taken care of for the rest of his life. So he is and he did his whole life. It was
he did lots of good work.
Lots of philanthropic work.
He's not a bad guy, but trying to unravel his story, and you were hoping, well, this will be the definitive George Michael video or documentary, and it's not. And
did they talk about the bathroom thing?
Well, I do want to say that because Rich Zuzwiak at Jezebel did a great dissection of this documentary in which he says the crux of George Michael to understanding him is the bathroom arrest that happened in 1996 or whatever.
Yeah.
And that George was never shy about talking about it.
It was a pivot point,
It was a pivoting point in
Yes.
how he felt about career. And he said, this is what gay men do, blah, blah, blah. And you would think that this documentary would show that was a moment
they
in a
talk
turning point.
around it. Is it Ricky?
Gervais
talks about what was challenging about George Michael as a gay man was that he was a gay man with a cock. That it was one of the first gay.
Thank you, Ricky.
No, it was one of the first gay icons who was
we
sexual.
hadn't realized that before.
No, but he wasn't a hairdresser.
Yeah, and he wasn't a neutered queen.
Yes,
he was like Paul Lind or you know.
Because he made that music video, right? Outside came after his arrest,
Yeah,
celebrating the whole thing with urinals and a disco ball.
Yes, he did, and they show that a little bit.
Right.
And we're running out of time, and you should see it. It's on Showtime. But the heart of it, and it makes me want to cry because it parallels my own existence. But in '91, he met the love of his life. They were together, and I forget his name.
They met in Brazil.
Anselmo Falepa.
Yeah.
They met in Rio in '91 at a concert. By '93, he died of AIDS, and that just like whoop. Hits you because they were in love for 6 months before he was diagnosed, and you're thinking like that's not a real thing. Then you just remember that time and how people fell in love, and it was and he said it was his first love, and it gave him a reason to live. And up until that point, he said it was hard to be proud when your sexuality doesn't bring you any joy. And that resonated with me because there was so many years of torture
and shame,
and then you think, well, he was around for 6 months, and it's sort of he didn't know whether he was positive. It doesn't say in the documentary, and why do I want to know? Was he positive? And I'm assuming he was, and that's sort of what fueled his desire to leave Sony and to walk in a different direction. I don't know. It left a lot of questions.
Well, that's George Michael's Freedom, currently streaming on Showtime's app, Showtime Anytime. It makes me think there's still a George Michael doc to be made.
Yes, true.
And, to tell the full story, because I think you touch on all these really important themes, and those tensions in his work are so critical. And the irony of this documentary being called Freedom, when it seems as if the documentary is anything but. It doesn't have that openness that you might expect.
And it's not awful to we're seeing, but it begs for more.
So that's the ghost of George Michael, because we're doing a Halloween theme, right? So the next thing that makes us go woo is
number 9.
James at number 9.
Killing of a Sacred Deer, which isn't really a horror film movie.
We're totally backing into the theme.
I know. I'm trying.
We all are.
Well, that's what it's called, right?
It is
a
called,
Halloween title.
I saw a movie at the ArcLight called Killing of a Sacred Deer, which was by the director Yorgos Lanthimos, who is the director who did The Lobster. Did anyone see The Lobster?
No, but I'm still recovering from you explaining The Lobster to us about a year ago.
I saw it. Yeah.
Well, he's a very surreal director, and he takes us and puts us into this alternate dimension where he very slowly and methodically things get batshit crazier and crazier and crazier. The Lobster was sort of his take on what romantic comedies is. This is his take on what a psychosexual thriller is. It stars Colin Farrell is a cardiovascular doctor, and he's married to an icy Nicole Kidman. Is there any other kind? And they have 2 children, a teenage girl and a boy. And he has this unhealthy obsession with this 16-year-old boy. And it starts off, and he's buying the boy pie, and then he gives the boy these expensive presents, and it's sort of like he has this secret little side relationship with this boy. And soon after, the boy shows up at the hospital that he works at, and he's like, "What are you doing here? What are you doing here?" And he's sort of freaking out, and a colleague walks past, and he says, "This is like a patient of mine." And the colleague's like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." And so he starts to get emboldened by the fact that he gets away with being seen in public with the boy. So he brings the boy over for dinner with Nicole Kidman and the kids.
Poor Nicole Kidman. Always marries the wrong guy.
And so
in life and in the movies.
After that, the boy starts to insinuate himself into the family's life. And until halfway through, it's sort of revealed what's really going on. And by that point,
you're not going to tell us.
I'm not going to tell you. But it's too late, and things really go off the rails from there. And the whole movie, everyone in the audience is going, "What the fuck? What the fuck?" People are just screaming it in the theater, like, "What?"
At the ArcLight, people were screaming.
Yes, people were screaming. I swear. Well, it was me and my sister. But basically, people are gasping throughout the movie because it keeps descending level after level of weirdness, and it's beautifully shot. It's like sort of a postmodern Ingmar Bergman. think of like the stark interiors where everybody's having these like mad monologues that make no sense, and then it's like Stanley Kubrick in a K-hole because there
sounds
these
like Mother, which also goes off the rails.
People
right?
have been saying that, but it's not because people hate Mother, and you will love this.
It's a good thing.
It's amazing.
How's it compare to The Lobster?
Well, it's interesting.
You like The Lobster.
No, it's interesting you should say that because to me, it's what Eraserhead was to Blue Velvet. It's that leap in artistry.
Okay.
It's what Bananas was to Annie Hall.
Okay.
It is this Yorgos Lanthimos is one of the most exciting people on the planet, directors on the planet, and low key, Colin Farrell has become one of the most interesting actors in Hollywood right now. When you think of
you
think of In Bruges, you think of The Lobster, you think of he was in Seven Psychopaths. He's just
doing all these dangerous movies,
yes,
edgy
he
movies.
is. He was just in the Sofia Coppola, The Beguiled. He's doing like lots of. He's making interesting choices, and he's turning into sort of a daddy character.
Is he sexy in it too?
He's sexy, but he's got a dad bod, and he's naked. Nicole
he has a
Kidman is
dad
naked.
bod.
You see, he's like sitting there, and at one point, like him and Nicole Kidman can only have sex if she pretends to be anesthetized, and then he jerks off on her. There's like all sorts
unusual?
A lot of that going around.
But it's just the movie is creepy and scary, and if you like weird, fun things, go see it on the big screen because it is just something
very
else.
Can you share like the title? Like, does the title make sense, or does it give it away? If
No,
you
I mean
say?
in sort of an allegorical sense that someone has to die,
So the
and
boy
so
is-
somebody is
the
sacrificed.
boy is Bambi.
Basically, yes. And the boy is adorable, and they're all adorable.
The Killing of a Sacred Deer, currently in theaters nationwide. For number 8,
Number 8.
Terror Weather. I went to see, it must be one of the few people, went to see Geostorm.
Yeah, you were one of the
Yay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not going to try and summarize the plot. I will just read what it says here. After an unprecedented series of natural disasters threatened the planet, the world's leaders came together to create an intricate network of satellites to control the global climate and keep everyone safe.
Well, I believe that. Sure,
That's great, right?
Yeah,
But now something has gone wrong. The system built to protect Earth is attacking it, etc., etc., etc. Because a geostorm is when you have so many freaky weather incidents that they all sort of combine or
Into
trigger
one superstorm.
megastorm that ravages the planet and kills everybody.
I think Superstorm would have been a better name.
Well, the perfect storm used to be 3 weather fronts, and now we've got several many.
Well, tell me about Gerard Butler because I'm not a big fan.
Well, I'm not really either. I loved in it. I tell you who I loved in it was Abby Cornish, who plays a fabulous sort of Chloe Sevigny-esque, cold, ice-blooded FBI person. And she's
Wasn't
fantastic.
she the one who played Wallace Simpson in the Madonna movie We?
Possibly.
Was that Abby
I
Cornish?
didn't see
She's
that.
very, very
Okay,
good.
sorry.
She really almost saves the movie because the movie is not distinguished by Oscar-winning performances, and the story is full of holes. I mean, as is often the case, I love a disaster movie, and I also actually quite like movies that are disasters at the box office, which this one is. It's on track to lose $100 million. But
wait a minute,
it's been supposed to have opened in March 2016, and the first cut apparently was unwatchable. So then, of course, they brought in Jerry Bruckheimer, who probably, in fairness, I think once you're in that situation,
doing, yeah.
well, but also probably made it more unwatchable because once you start messing with something,
Right.
it's a slippery slope, or is it even is there any way back? In a way, wouldn't it have been better if they just put it out in its unwatchability rather than trying to make it watchable? Because I feel a lot of the sort of plot holes, of which there are many, just doesn't, the attempt to make it serviceable, I think, does it a disservice because I think in there's a really fabulously bad movie.
But wait, but did Nolan like it? I guess is the question.
Yeah, kinda.
I mean, if a 10-year-old boy likes it, then
there's a problem with the movie, which is a disaster movie has to deliver on the disaster, right? So it's called Geostorm,
Right.
I don't want to give it away because I know you're going to go see it, but the
Right.
Geostorm never happens.
I was going to say,
Which is
what were the
like-
special effects? Is it like a lot of rain?
There are some lead-up storms.
Is it
the
like
great thing
hail
is, remember the day
storms?
after when cold front came in and everyone just instantly froze?
That's good stuff.
They have that. That's quite good. They
Okay.
freeze entire villages in Afghanistan.
But how
for some
anticlimactic if there's
terror-related-
no actual.
There's some storms, but they're just not, the big one doesn't happen. It's not like Sharknado, for example. It's just sharks
I was going
everywhere.
to ask, did sharks get sucked into the geostorm?
Exactly. There were no. Then the other thing, I mean, I just think the story of the movie is almost more interesting than the movie itself because they've had terrible bad luck. It was supposed to come out March 2016, and then it was supposed to come out a few months ago, and they had these posters, Brave the Storm. And of course, it was, Hurricane Harvey, Irma, Maria, the wildfires. I mean, and so they quickly sent out a notice saying, "Oh, take down the posters, take down the posters. We're going to send you new posters." And the new
posters don't have any storms on them?
Well, they have a storm. They say some things were never meant to be controlled, which I think is sort of actually ironically revealing. I feel you can't control movies.
And they overly controlled the making of the movie.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. I mean, this was Dean Devlin's first directorial outing in a mega movie. He produced Independence Day, Godzilla.
But I would say it's 6 of one, half a dozen the other, because sometimes things get fixed and we don't know it. A lot of times, I know with like music especially, like here is the unreleased track, or here was the original track. You're like, it's awful. It's like, thank God they cut out that middle part. Yeah. So I can't. The temptation, the money is so extreme. It must be hard to let it just sit there. You think you can fix it. You can fix it.
The stakes are so high. Yeah.
Especially when it seems like such a no-brainer of a movie that will make $100 billion, and then you have a piece of shit on your hands and you don't know what to do with it.
There is a great moment where a man is riding a camel across the desert, and you're like wondering what hideous weather catastrophe is about to strike.
Sinkhole.
Huge tidal wave appears behind him, and his camel is going, giddy up, giddy up, giddy up. And you see the Burj Khalifa, the mega, the super tall thing in Dubai, gets hit by the tidal wave and keels over. And it's like, you've got that. So it does have some good sort of city destruction.
See, but the thing I always felt about like the city destruction scenes in these movies is that if it really happens in real life, like if when the White House is blown up someday and we've seen it, it's like we will. Those movies always make me feel a little weird because what if it really happens? Because it could happen.
You'll be like, that wasn't that spectacular. It was better in Independence Day.
Geostorm, currently playing in theaters nationwide. I don't know how long it's going to be there. Check your local listings. So we'd have to take a quick break.
Do you have a weather quiz?
We do. How did you know that?
I've been watching this show.
What was the deadliest natural disaster since the year 2000? You're listening to the Wow Report on Radio Andy, SiriusXM.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report.
Welcome back to the Wow Report, our countdown of the top 10 things that make us go,
wow.
Well, except it's like, woo. I'm Fender Bailey, co-founder of World of Wonder, here with Tom Campbell.
Hello.
And Jason James. And Blake, who's looking up the answer to the question of this week.
I know the question. I know the answer. I think I know the answer.
Okay, so the question was, what is the deadliest natural, not unnatural, James, natural disaster
I'm with you. I'm right on board.
Natural disaster since 2000. What is your guess?
Well, my first thought was it's the costliest, but it's the deadliest. And the deadliest would have to be the tsunami that it took out 3/4 of the world.
Oh, right. In Indonesia, right?
Yeah.
I'll go with that.
I don't know. Yes, you're probably right.
You are right.
Oh!
It's only the second. It's the second worst in world history.
I thought. Yeah,
Wow,
I remember.
And I'm applauding.
The number one was the Central China floods in the 30s.
What was the body count?
Over 1 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Blake,
I mean, it wasn't
you're
3/4.
deeply researched, Blake. This is like CNN. Very good.
This was 250,000, right?
Yeah, it was something around there.
That's shocking.
It wasn't. That's not 3/4 of the world, but I just was being hyperbolic. Sorry.
Well, it doesn't compare with the bubonic plague of
James being
1300
dramatic.
and blah, blah, blah.
James being dramatic.
What? God.
Number 7.
Number 7.
Tom?
EGOT. You know what that means?
No.
An EGOT is someone who's won an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony, and there's very few of them. And one of them is the Latina perfection, the Puerto Rican songstress, actress, Rita Moreno. And I saw Rita at the Catalina Bar and Grill, which is 2 blocks that way, last Saturday night.
Now she's
still with us.
Yeah, she's 80 something,
She's
right?
85.
Yeah. And still spry.
beyond spry. It's funny. Only in gay LA, I went to see it with my friend Noah and Greg, and on the way back, I'm like, compared to Jane Fonda, she's in even better shape. And I was like, do not put down Jane Fonda. We had a huge fight about who's in better shape. But Rita Moreno has always been beautiful and somehow supernaturally young. She is 85. She is beyond spry. She's 40. And she's like a young 40, and she's wearing this cream suit with like bell sleeves, and then this tight little silken bustier.
Well, she was a dancer all her life.
But
so
she's flat
perfect.
stomached.
Yeah.
She is hot. She was also very sweet. Her voice, at 85, she goes, I woke up with a terrible sinus infection. So she goes, so if you hear me crack, or if something goes wrong, instead of feeling bad for me, think how brave she is. So she had us in the palm of her hand. She told many, many stories as well as singing. Norman Lear was there because she's also starring in that Netflix,
the One Day at a Time.
One Day at a Time at 85, and Norman Lear's there, and he yells out and goes, because he's One Day at a Time, and he's like, between us we're 180 years old. He's 95 and she's 85. So it was kind of amazing. There was a huge crowd.
Did she do all her musical classics?
Well, we're in line waiting to go in, and my friend Greg is like, well, she can't really sing the Puerto Rico song because it's like putting down like Puerto Rico,
right?
Awful Island, but she doesn't, and it's really, that's not sort of what she can sing. It's not going to be.
Did she do coming to?
She did not. It was more autobiographical. It was sweet little songs. The funny thing is that her voice she was being protective and she was singing through it. And it's beautiful. The last song was a Christmas song in Spanish, famous in Puerto Rico. I don't know the name of it. And she sang that, and it was like nothing was wrong with her voice. It was something about that it was
she was
authentic.
Yes.
And it was just like she sang it, and it was fantastic.
Did she chat a lot?
She chatted a great deal, and she revealed, which I didn't know, which I've done research on now, that she had a long-standing affair in the 50s with Marlon Brando.
Oh, I do know that. I do remember that.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
And she's, at 85, she doesn't have any
fucks to give.
Exactly. And she's still classy. She's not telling you too much. But she sang this like in passion. She sang that song from I know it doesn't sound like Barbara Streisand when she dressed as a boy. Yentl.
Oh, Yentl.
Father, can you hear me?
No, but it's I like the way he makes me feel him, and it was all about Marlon Brando and how sexy he was, but what a dick he was. And I've read, because she was in Singing in the Rain. So like she goes way back to like the MGM kind of thing. And
she was in The King and I.
She was in The King and I. She won her Emmy for two things, but one was for an extended guest star on the Rockford Files.
Oh, wait, wasn't she on Oz as well forever?
Yes.
Yes, she was amazing. She was the psychiatrist.
She won a Grammy for the Electric Company album.
Oh, yes,
She won an Oscar for West Side Story, and she won the Tony for At the Ritz, where she played Googie Gonzalez, which is this crazy character. Have you ever seen that movie?
No.
It's by Terrence McNally, and she told the story.
Googie Gonzalez, that's so racist.
She used to play this character with the dancers on. She goes, I made up this character because we just want to cut each other up while we're smoking cigarettes. She goes, which I think dancers still do in between sets. They smoke cigarettes. Because I would make Googie Gonzalez, and I would make this crazy character. And she did it for Terrence McNally, and he wrote a play around it, which won her a Tony, and it was made into a movie. And it's set at a gay. It's sort of like the Bette Midler story. It's like a woman who works at a gay bath. And there's a whole thing about a hit comes in, they're trying to, hitman comes in and whatever. But she has this amazing career.
Shouldn't Bette try and revive that? Wouldn't that be meta and wonderful if she did?
Be. Someone should revive it. It's a great idea.
I have a question though. Like, did it feel like high wattage superstar, or did it feel a little like this is a twilight of a celebrity in the sense of like, what was, because I'm like, why would you want to do that at 85 years old? I'm not judging. I'm just like,
it
why?
felt like you were invited over to her home and she told you amazing stories, and the piano was there and she sang.
Sure.
Hold
right.
on.
That felt
I do want to
amazing.
say that there's a documentary of Rosemary coming out very soon, and she's been tweeting up a storm
From the
lately.
Dick Van Dyke Show.
Yeah, from the Dick Van Dyke Show. She was also a child star back in the 1920s. She was on vaudeville. She was in vaudeville. Did early movies, and she just tweeted the other day. She said, "I'm 94 years old. I've been working since I was 3. I've been working for 91 years, and I'm not going to stop now.
I follow her
It's
on
what
Twitter.
I know how to do."
Right.
And that's a lot of those old workhorses. This is just what they do. They can't stop it.
And she's so elegant and so good with the crowd and knows just what she's doing. And there's no, with the exception that she had a bad voice that night, there was no sign of age. There's no sign of like being addled or confused. She is in the prime of her life at 85. And there's that perspective too, where she said after winning the Oscar in '61 she didn't get another movie for 7 years.
Wow.
You know, careers are fucked up things.
Well, hopefully we'll all be doing this in 85.
Keep it going.
We are 85.
Keep it going.
Next year.
The eternal Rita Moreno. You can also watch her in the reboot One Day at a Time.
Yep.
Currently streaming on Netflix.
Yeah.
Number 6. Okay.
Number 6.
Dead sexy. Marlon Brando and James Dean. Okay,
so a tie-in, a slight
yeah,
tie-in.
yeah, there's a theme. Ooh.
What's going on? What's going
Well,
on?
here's the thing. Blood Moon Productions. Blood Moon Productions.
What's going on?
I don't know where to start.
You're so excited about this.
I don't know where to start. Like Blood Moon Productions are these American publishers, and they publish these books about. I mean, they're obsessed with fame, and they publish these
Aren't
books.
we all?
Well, right, but they've written a book about Rock Hudson called Erotic Fire. The Kennedys, All the Gossip Unfit to Print. Michael Jackson, His Rise and Fall. Merv Griffin, A Life in the Closet. Steve McQueen, Tales of a Lurid Life. Brando, Unzipped. Paul Newman's Secret Life Exposed. So they write these incredible, I mean, these are like...
Tawdry, lurid.
Often they're like over 600 pages long.
Are they? 'Cause I was going to say, are they like thin little like?
No, they're
pulp?
thick tomes, big, fat
I've never heard of
books.
any of these.
I know, right? It's a small publishing house, and what they do is they hoover up all the gossip and they put it together, and you suddenly
Is it
realize
Kenneth Anger?
reading. Yes, it's very much the new version of Hollywood Babylon.
Yes.
And you suddenly realize as you're reading these incredibly condensed or compendiums of gossip that you're probably reading the unvarnished truth about all these stars that has been hidden from us.
Sure.
And of course, the amount of sex is amazing, and the number of them who were gay is, you suddenly realize there's a whole legacy and history that has been sort of officially hidden from view. And Blood Moon Productions is this small publishers who are bringing these stories to light, and really, frankly, they get no respect. You know, their books don't really get reviewed.
Right.
They're seen as sort of
I've never
tawdry.
seen one at Barnes and Noble.
Exactly. And it still speaks to the fact, I think, that these stories and what really went on is still considered a little bit off limits
They
or not
interrupt
proper.
the narrative, the Hollywood
Or
narrative.
They disrupt the myth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the thing that caught my eye was Marlon Brando and James Dean had this twisted love affair.
Yeah,
did you know that?
I did know that,
Oh,
yes.
okay. Yeah.
So while Rita Moreno was sleeping with Marlon Brando for 8 years, off and
Marlon
on.
Brando was stubbing out cigarettes on James Dean.
Yeah, I've seen some websites that list all of James Dean's lovers, and he's one of them. And I never knew that it was an actual love affair. I thought they were just fuck buddies that occasionally.
Right. They were. I mean, James Dean apparently was more in love with Brando. Brando
Yes.
wasn't really in love
because there's
at
a
all.
famous story about how James Dean, when he first got to New York, would sleep on Brando's doorstep, and Brando would always be like, "Who is this kid? Get him out of here!"
Right. That's right. He
Yes.
would wait outside his apartment all night, and sometimes Brando would come down and let him upstairs for a
Rita Moreno says that
session.
Marlon Brando was sexually insatiable
Well,
and
you
a
know,
cad.
Elaine
So this all
Stritch said
lines
the
in.
same thing. Remember Elaine Stritch in her one-woman show, that movie that they did the movie
Yeah,
about,
yeah.
was talking about her affair with him, and she was talking about just what an insatiable beast he was.
One of the other.
Wait, who is that? But who's the top and who's the bottom? It just boggles the mind. Do you know?
I think
in the
Rita
Marlon-
Moreno was top. Oh, sorry.
Wait, obviously James is the bottom, right?
I think so, right?
Yes.
You know, the ashtray
and those big doe eyes looking
Well,
up at
right.
you. Oh my God!
And I learned another interesting thing from this book was that Cukor felt he owed James Dean a favor because he cast Anthony Perkins in The Actress instead of James Dean. So the weird way of making it up to James Dean was to have Walt Disney over, and they had a threesome.
No, they
Walt
did
Disney,
not.
James
No,
Cukor.
this is where you've just lost me. Walt Disney did not have an affair with George Cukor, or sleep with George Cukor and James Dean.
Dean later claimed to a gossip reporter that he was devoured by two ravenous mouths.
No, you completely lost me because there's no Walt Disney. I have never heard word one about this, and I think I've heard everything about everything.
So
You're
this
just
is well, you
jealous.
hadn't even heard of Blood Moon Productions. And I will just say say books are coming back, by the way. E-readers sales are falling. People are getting back into books.
Oh, for crying
the joy
out
of
loud.
text.
Walt Disney
So
and George.
something.
Well, I can just say that, Jimmy Stewart and Clark Gable had an affair with
Ricky Ricardo.
Ricardo, yes.
So that's Darwin Porter and Danforth Prince. Blood Moon Productions .com books. Check them out. Really, you'll learn something.
Well, I am fascinated now. I am going to go back and do
Okay.
the...
I'm gonna start looking at Walt Disney a little differently.
What have you got for us, James, at number 5?
Number 5.
I saw The Babysitter on Netflix. Do you know anything about this? Have you seen the billboards?
It's about a satanic babysitter, right?
You've given it all away. You've ruined the whole thing. I'm leaving right now.
That's a trope. It's like Geostorm.
It's a new movie.
It's a new movie. It's on Netflix. It's by McG. So the whole thing is basically it's fast paced. It's blowing things up, blah blah blah, and it's for hormonally challenged teenage boys. Basically, is what it is. It's an homage to 80s slasher pics. It's a young nerdy boy who is too old to have a babysitter, but his parents are overprotective. They give him a babysitter, and the babysitter is the hottest creature on the planet. And she comes in and she's in a bikini, and they watch slasher movies, and they do shots, and they watch porn, and they have nerdy content. And she's just every boy's fantasy of what a hot chick is, right? She comes blah, 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 blah. She comes over all the time, and over the course of the weeks, they become really, really good friends, and they're best friends. And she saves them from the bullies and all this kind of stuff.
A great setup,
right? He has a girlfriend at school, not a girlfriend, but she's a friend that's a girl.
I'm worried about her.
Yeah, but she says, you know what happens after you go to sleep? She invites boys over and they fuck. And the boy is like, no, he doesn't. No, she doesn't. No, she doesn't. So he decides to stay up one night to see what happens when he goes to sleep. So he stays up and he sneakies down and he's watching, and he brings a bunch of friends over and they're all playing spin the bottle. And there's this one scene here with Bella Thorne, who is acting like this is her movie. She really has like one or two good scenes
and
in
somehow that upsets you.
It does. Bella Thorne, we can even do a whole bunch on Bella Thorne. Okay. But anyway, the battle stops on Bella, and the babysitter and Bella have this makeout scene that is an extreme close-up slow motion with the music and the spittle and the lips, and they're biting the lips. And it's you can see McG jerking off as he's editing it.
Sounds like a sexual harassment movie.
It really is. But what was I going to...
Page 6.
Yeah, right.
It's notes.
But as Fenton Blue, what's really happening is that it's really she's a Satanist. They're all Satanists. They're doing a blood sacrifice. That it all sort of and everything sort of starts.
So it's a coven.
Yes, it's a coven, and it all unspools from there. And eventually, it turns into everybody's chasing the little boy. Everyone's trying to kill the little boy
Because he saw too much.
He saw too much.
Stay in bed, people. Stay in bed.
Robbie Amell, isn't it? Stephen Amell from Arrow. It's his brother. He's got his shirt off the entire time. He's got these chewy nips that are just magnificent,
like gummy bears.
Exactly. Yes.
No idea what I'm saying.
He's like nice really the reason to watch. The kid is absolutely amazing. His name is Judah Lewis. He's someone to watch. There's this new wave of kids with Finn Wolfhard and all these new kids that are coming up through with It and Stranger Things.
You keep up,
I
James.
do.
You're so impressed.
And the reason why is because I've been programmed to it with Freak Show. I've been looking for teenage kids for forever.
For research.
No, to star in my movie. So for the last 10 years, I've been on the
looking
teenage.
for young.
Yes, I've been watching teenage movies.
You're casting.
The babysitter her name is Samara Weaving. She's a big star coming up. I can see it.
Okay.
Did you scream? Did it make you yelp or anything? Is that kind of movie? Yeah.
It's fun. It's funny. You're screaming as you're laughing. There's some jump scares in it. It's not scary, but it's fun, and it's a good movie
ride.
for Halloween night if you're watching with a Netflix and chill person.
So that's your satanic streaming, right? Yes. So okay, we've got to take another break.
Is our quiz gonna be about Satanism?
Could be. What does the director of The Babysitter, McG,
yes,
famous music video director actually before.
Yes.
So what does McG and Tom Brady, what do they have in common?
Inflategate?
This is the Wow Report on Radio Andy SiriusXM.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report.
Welcome back to the Wow Report here on Radio Andy SiriusXM. So we're counting down the top things that make us go wow,
and woo and boo and
things that. So before the break, we were just talking about The Babysitter, directed by McG, and so the question was, what does McG have in common with Tom Brady? I have no.
I'm assuming it's Giselle, the wife, was in one of his videos or something.
Oh, I was going to say they both had threesomes with Walt Disney and George Cukor.
Oh, that's it.
No, I'm going with you. I'm saying they both fucked Giselle.
Oh.
Blake?
Well, close. It was Bridget Moynihan.
Oh, yes.
Those the
Oh,
days.
I do remember.
And Walt Disney or something.
Walt Disney was gay, James.
No, he
Come on,
was
face
not.
facts.
We know he was anti-Semitic. We know he was a nasty old, crusty old bastard.
Doesn't mean you can't be gay too.
Well, we know many crusty old bastard gays, but I don't think Walt was one of them. I've never heard that. Who else was he with? What other gossip has there been about
I
him?
don't want to get sued.
Yeah, young Fenton. I don't know.
Number 4. Uh-oh.
Number 4.
Halloween Peen. This is just one of those incredible headlines that catches your eye. Inmate sues penal system over his 91-hour erection.
Was he given Viagra in
Just
prison?
another day.
Someone gave him a pill.
Oh, and he didn't know what he was taking.
Well, you're in jail. You know how it goes.
Right, okay.
And the thing is, no one took him seriously, and he was having unbearable pain, and they wouldn't let him stop, or they wouldn't take him to like the medic and whatever. And so his penis supposedly has been hurt.
How?
Well, because I
is in
do know
Oklahoma.
this, that after you've been
Go on. You started, so you might as well finish.
well, after like 2 or 3 days, and then you keep going and going and going, you do break your penis. Your penis can be broken.
It just gets
All
soggy,
of
or it just deflates.
no, you
just-
actually break it. It's like the
Oh.
tissue, the muscle.
Stop right there.
What?
Because I have a penis quiz. Because this weighs so many questions.
Yeah.
I went to WebMD and I want to test your knowledge.
Okay.
Can you break your penis?
Yes, it's happened many times.
Yes,
over
it's
the
possible.
years.
It doesn't.
Can
it
you
has
break
no
it more than
bones,
once? You
but
can't-
it has chambers that fill with blood, and when you're erect, if you push too hard and bend it too far, the chambers can tear apart. and
It's
the
like
blood
a
will
muscle
stay there.
tear. It's like
Oh.
you just ripped it in half.
Oh.
Yes.
What's the usual age for a first erection? Is it 13 or up, 5 to 6, age 1 or under?
Age 1
1 or under.
Correct. Sometimes in the fetus, babies have erections.
That's not right. That's incest.
Point.
If you have an erection that lasts longer than 4 hours, James, your doctor may suggest a warm shower, climbing stairs, or having sex right away.
I imagine it would be climbing stairs, something to like tire you out.
No, I think having sex, because once you come, you go down, right?
Not in these cases.
No.
It's climbing stairs.
Yeah.
Because
you're getting the blood to move up and down
yes,
and
but
things
you
like
should
that.
really see a doctor. Are you bored yet? These are good.
No, I'm loving
Should
it.
I worry about little bumps on my penis?
Oh.
No, I think they're perfectly natural.
Correct. Little bumps, goosebumps, they're fine.
I've got a bumpy penis.
How long?
You have a bumpy, broken penis.
How long is the average erect penis? 7 to 9, 6.5 to 7, or 5 to 6.5?
5 to 6.5.
6.5 to 7.
I would say 6.5 to 7, but it's probably 5 to 6.5.
It's 5 to 6.5, but of course, when you measure it online, it's always 8.
But have you've seen the maps of the world where the penis size in various countries?
Yes.
Have you ever seen
Feels
that?
like
yes. So,
sticky water.
so this is America centric is 5 to 7.5.
Where, what,
Well,
you
there's some places in
It's another show.
That's a whole nother
It's
show.
a whole other theme show.
thin ice,
Big
right?
feet, big penis. True or false?
False.
False.
Correct. Who made the term?
But big nose, big penis is usually quite true.
I have no backup
James,
here.
I'm so impressed.
Who made the term ball ironing popular?
Oh, George Clooney.
Yes.
What is ball? What is ball?
That's what we
lining?
were talking about the other day with the
Scrotox?
Scrotox. Yes.
Oh, that's when you put Botox
He did,
in.
yeah, he does it. He irons his. He has his balls ironed all the time.
He made a joke about it once.
No, it's true. I've seen it.
It's normal to have erections while you sleep.
Yeah.
Yes, and if you don't, you should see
A doctor.
A doctor, because if you're not having that could be a problem. You need to have blood circulation or something. Surgery can make your penis bigger.
Yeah. Well, it can make it thicker and it can elongate it a little.
Yes, just a little. It's not, you don't do it. Masturbation is as healthy as having sex.
No, it's terrible. It gives you hairy palms. Mommy.
It says it's false. It says the experience between sex and doing the job yourself. Experts not sure, but the body seems to know and behaves differently when you have sex. Your semen has more and healthier sperm when you
But I heard you're supposed to masturbate or ejaculate like once every couple of days.
Yeah, just to keep the pipes clean. They don't talk about that.
Yeah.
But I guess the quality of the sperm is stronger.
Well, I imagine there's
so
probably
they
more
know
of a...
that you're having it with someone and they get
so.
all excited.
Well, I think the emotion is probably stronger if you're having it, and the thrust is in the...
I want to end with one. Masturbating more than 5 times a week is unhealthy. True or false?
False.
I would say it's false.
Yay! It's false.
Okay.
So
let's hurry through the show so we can all go and have a quick wank.
Thank you.
James, number 3.
Number 3.
Well, I don't know that I can follow that. Goodness.
It says here, watcher in the woods. It seems appropriate.
Oh, wood. That watched you with your wood is what I saw. No, I saw a Lifetime movie called Watcher in the Woods, which is a remake of a 1980 Bette Davis movie. I don't know if you remember. It's Carol Bayer-Sager. Not Carol Bayer-Sager. Carol Baker.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, it's Carol Baker and Bette Davis and Kyle Richards.
Yes.
Isn't it? And it's sort of a classic of horror. It's a kiddie-friendly horror film.
This isn't the one where Bette Davis dies and they shoot her with a cat or something. Different movie. Sorry.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Another show.
Okay, this one has Angelica Houston.
So this is a remake.
This is a remake.
Okay,
yeah,
we have a remake of Watcher in the
on
Woods.
Lifetime. And as we know, Lifetime has been wanting to do lots of big movies and lots of fun things and lots of artsy movies. Right.
Classing it up.
Yeah,
yes.
classing it up a bit. So in that vein, they've brought in Angelica Houston to be the woman.
Oscar winner.
Yes, she plays the Bette Davis role of the old woman on the edge of the woods who lost her daughter 20 years ago to this creature, the Watcher in the Woods, right? It's directed by Melissa Joan Hart, which is sort of an odd thing. Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
So she knows of horror.
But the reason why I watched this is because it stars Nicholas Galtzine. I don't know if you remember. He was our Hot Men's of the Week. He was
Dunkirk?
No, he was in Handsome Devil, the Irish coming-of-age movie that I talked about, the gay Irish, and he's very Culkin-esque. He's got these lips. He looks like he could be Macaulay's strapping older brother. He's just, he's a terrible actor, just awful, but God bless him, he steals every scene that he's in. We talked about how Lifetime is trying to class things up, blah, 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 but they just don't seem to have the money. And you know this.
Well, it's, ultimately, Lifetime movies, they're a sausage factory, and you get sent off to the wilds of Canada to make your sausage, and you come back, and what you have is a sausage. It may have some classy bits in it, but it's a sausage, nonetheless, right? A sausage.
Interestingly,
not that there's anything wrong
this
with that.
is set in the
People
Welsh
love sausage.
countryside.
I love sausages.
And it's
Yum.
set in the Welsh countryside, and they go to England, but Lifetime won't let
It's
them...
not England, probably. It's Canada.
Well, Lifetime won't let them... No, they're in England, but Lifetime won't let them hire any American actors. They have to only hire
Canadian content.
British,
Right.
yes. So the story is this American families, but they have this British cast all doing really bad American accents. It's really crazy. One of the other big problems was the movie... most of the movie is set at night, and they won't shoot at night, so they just put a blue filter over everything.
To shoot at night, so it's cheaper to shoot during the day.
This blue filter is the cheapest, saddest thing you've ever seen. They keep trying to tell you that the sun is the moon. They keep saying, look at the moon, it's so bright. And the camera will pan up with the blue filter on the sun. And then they'll show
Maybe that was an artistic choice, though.
No. They'll have a street lamp, and they'll just cut a circle out around the blue filter so the sunlight will be around the street lamp. It's just really,
I'm a huge Angelica Houston fan. I've
Yeah.
been my whole life. Will be to the day I die. However, what would have made this a Lifetime movie that I would watch if they had not cast her but instead cast Miss Susan Lucci. Now, that's a Lifetime movie. Go back to your roots.
You have to lean into it,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
Right?
because I'll tell you, and it really, this has destroyed her legacy. She is absolutely terrible in it. She's trying her damnedest to do a Welsh accent. What is a Welsh accent? Does anybody even know? She's never. Maybe she listened to like who was married to Elizabeth Taylor? Richard Burton. She listened to a Richard Burton movie once.
She listened to the Camelot soundtrack from Broadway. And moved on.
And she's going around in these sort of widow weeds with and she's just terrible.
She would have killed it.
Yeah. The other two things that are sort of funny about the Lifetime thing is the monster, the Watcher in the Woods, is played by a drone with an iPhone on top of it. So it just sort of like floats around. Like
Technology.
No, you're seeing it from his point of view.
Oh, so it's a POV.
Yeah, the POV. So you just have this iPhone floating around on a drone, which is what
iPhone
really
6 or 7.
You really see the drone on the iPhone?
No.
He just knows how it's made.
No, because I was reading about it, and literally
that sounds
they just
kind of high
strapped
production values.
Yeah. The other thing is there's like a flashback scene to when the daughter disappears, and they didn't have any money for costumes, and so you don't know when it's supposed to be. So there's like all these like 20s costumes and 50s costumes and 70s costumes, and if you do the math, like the daughter disappeared in like 1997, but like they have like all these flappers out there, and turns out they didn't have any money to buy the clothes, to get clothes or to have a costumer, so they just went to the Doctor Who wardrobe and got all these old outfits from old Doctor Who episodes.
This
and
movie sounds amazing.
Is it so bad it's good?
It's just so bad it's bad. But it's Halloween, so I thought I would get it.
And you watched the whole thing?
I watched the whole thing.
God bless you.
The first one is like a minor classic, and it really is worth checking out to go back and see the Betty Davis, because it's Betty Davis really camping it up, and it's near the end of her life, and it's sort of post-stroke, and she's out there in the woods.
So there's Watcher in the Woods, the original, or anytime the remake on Lifetime.com or Lifetime app. Number 2, you guys.
Number 2.
Monstropolis.
What is that?
What's going on?
Monstropolis is the city known as Astana. Astana, who cares? It's in Kazakhstan. It's the new capital of Kazakhstan.
And I am to understand that you were obsessed with the stands lately.
Soviet Bus Stops Volume 2, just like the stands are somewhere in the steppes, right? They used to belong to Russia, and there's 5 of them. But Kazakhstan is the largest.
How many can you name?
It is, in fact, the largest landlocked. I can't name any. It's the largest landlocked country in the world. And the first and only president of Kazakhstan is Nursultan Nazarbayev. And he decided, in what is called an act of Promethean audacity, to move.
That's great.
Isn't that great?
Can we put that towards Trump?
To move the capital to the middle of nowhere. It's on the sort of Eurasian steppes. It's either 104 degrees of heat in the summer or minus 104 in the winter. There is no sort of temperate moment. It's just brutally hot or brutally cold. And he built, over the last 20 years, he has built this massive city. It completely puts Dubai in the shadows. And the reason I know about it is they just had the World Expo there. And I wish I'd known about it
oil
earlier.
money? What do they have there?
Petrodollars in abundance. Yes.
So it's a beautiful city. It's a big city with skyscrapers.
It's a little bit Vegas. It's a little bit Dubai. There are giant sort of eggs and giant sort of. In fact,
so it's really fabulous architecture is going on and going up there.
Crazy architecture.
I love
the
that.
locals
Yeah.
call it the Dancing Drunkard, which is these wavy skyscrapers.
I love those. Yeah.
There's the Cabbage, which is a musical performance hall. There's this thing that's a sort of giant tower with a big orb in the top. A big golden
are people going?
orb.
Is money going there? Is society going there? Is
billions and billions and
is
billions
Cafe
of
Society?
dollars. And
is Lindsay Lohan there yet?
Lindsay Lohan, yes, she should build her own tower. And the
Millions
yurt,
of milkshakes.
the yurt.
Is LaToya opening a million, doing a million milkshake opening?
So, which
That's No, but it really sounds fun. Should we go? Do we want to go?
Yeah, I want to go. Come on, guys. We're going to go to Astana.
It would be great. I'll do the show, and you guys will go there, and Blake and I will take over.
Needless to say, of course, Starkitects love a dictator because, they have money to spend. Starkitects, not just architects, but Starkitects. We're talking about Norman Foster, for example. Who's the guy? Frank Gehry. All the world's greatest architects have been building these monumental, crazy structures.
And who's the woman? Who's that woman who does those?
Zaha Hadid.
Oh, I love her. Is she doing things there?
Well, she's passed on now, of course. But her company's still around. Yes, no, architects aren't very fussy about where the money, they just build it.
Yeah, well, that's why China's just filled with all these fabulous ghost cities with all this wonderful architecture.
Yeah,
so I'm just trying to get into
Have you booked a ticket?
Well, actually, I haven't booked a ticket, but I did buy the book. There's a book written by a completely bonkers guy called, what's his name? Frank Albo. He's kind of a professor in Winnipeg, and he's really into Freemasonry, and he's written this fantastic book called Architecture, Myth, and Destiny, and it's all about Astana. So he normally decodes cities and tells you what, the Freemason symbolism is, but with Astana, he decided to encode it. So he's written this completely bonkers book.
I don't understand what that means.
And, well, instead of reading the symbols, he's here's all these buildings that have no connection to each other, and he's created these myths, and he's saying because actually the layout looks quite like Washington D.C. Of course they built something like the White House, except it's 8 times bigger, and it has a huge blue dome on it with a big pin sticking out the top.
I see a documentary in this. I think you should be paid to go.
One of the myths that connects the buildings is that Walt Disney was gay.
You bitches. So if you
can't tie stuff together.
And the reason why you should buy this book, by the way, is concealed within the book is a golden ticket to Astana. So if you can decode the text, you can go to Astana for free.
I can barely find time to read.
Now, but what is the situation with the gays in Kazakhstan, though?
Well, moving on. We have to take a quick break. No, I don't think it's good. I mean, the problem is they're like one of the worst ranked countries for freedom of press. It's a dictatorship, basically. Right. And so it's not good.
So this isn't a place that we should all be telling everyone to go. It's the new Puerto Vallarta.
I'm curious. I want to go.
It's the new Palm Springs.
Is it Jonathan Adler?
Yeah, it's Jonathan Adler there. Is Simon Doonan gone?
We have to take a quick break. When we come back, Resistor of the Week, and the number one thing this week that made us go, woohoo. But look, I do have a question for you, actually. Because Kazakhstan did give rise to someone super, super famous, someone who you know. Who is it? Who is the most famous person to emerge from Kazakhstan? Listen to the Wow Report on Radio Andy, SiriusXM.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. So we're counting down the top 10 things that make us go wow.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wow. It's a sort of pseudo-Halloween themed episode.
We didn't put a lot of effort into it.
Here with James and Tom and Blake. And we've reached that climactic moment where we reveal the number one. But first, I was being mercilessly mocked for talking about Astana, the new jewel of Kazakhstan. And I was asking, who is the most famous person to emerge from Kazakhstan?
First Lady Melania Trump.
Good guess.
Oh, that is
very good guess.
I was going to say Andrea Pajek, the supermodel, the transgender supermodel.
Good guess too. You're both wrong. It is Borat.
That's what I was going to say.
I'm Blake.
I'm sorry. Not a real person, but you win.
So
that was a trick question.
I know. So who's number one this week?
Number one.
Something happened this week that will be affecting our lives on a daily, if not hourly basis from now until February, and that is the announcement that Justin Timberlake's doing the halftime show at the Super Bowl. What are we going to do about it?
So many
mixed
problems.
Feelings.
So problematic.
Well, mixed feelings. The pro, for a minute, is just like, he's a huge superstar. He clearly has a new album coming out.
But con, he's the douchebag.
Okay. Point, counterpoint.
Okay.
He's done the Super Bowl twice before.
Con, When he did it, he threw fucking Janet Jackson under the goddamn bus.
First, he did it as part of NSYNC in that MTV thing with Britney and Aerosmith and Run
2001.
DMC. 2001, which was so hot. And then with the Janet, when he and Janet shared the Super Bowl, and he ripped off, there was the wardrobe malfunction. And a week after that, Justin Timberlake was on the Grammys winning a bunch of awards. And
poor Janet has never had a career again.
Was in some conference room giving like a hostage tape apology to America.
Yes, it was a crime what happened
So
to
he's
her.
never really addressed it, has he?
No, he's never apologized.
Has he?
No, I don't know that he has for sure. But I mean, it was a stupid thing to begin with, but it's like a black woman was made to pay the price.
Yes.
Versus a white guy.
Reclaiming her time.
And I remember seeing him on the Grammys the next week or whatever. It was like a week or two later on CBS. And his mother was there, and she had like a low-cut dress. I thought, like, geez, if that dress just moved 1 inch, we'd see her nipple, and we wouldn't know what to do about it.
Of course, if he ripped it off, then we would have seen a nipple, which is what he did to Janet, right?
I think what should happen at the Super Bowl is he should cede his time, bring Janet on stage, and let her perform for 15 minutes, and then say thank you, good night.
That's the burning question. Hashtag Justice for Janet is on the internet.
Right.
If you were Janet, because that was my first thought, like, oh, he's going to bring Janet back. It's going to be fantastic. If you were Janet, would you go back to the scene of the crime? Would you go back to the potted plant?
Well, I think Janet has. I think. I don't think Janet is bitter about it. I really don't think that's in her nature. I think that we're more upset about it than she is. I don't think she would. I think that she's sort of moved on, don't you?
I wonder. Part of me wants the Justice for Janet thing, but maybe she should be given the whole Super Bowl to do. And suppose the NFL has come out and said that they have not banned her for life.
Yeah.
So maybe she'll do something. But it almost brings it up again.
But I don't think Justin would ever do that. I think it's the Justin Timberlake show, and I think he is such an egomaniacal, control freak, nasty son of a bitch.
Blake.
I think Janet should come back and rip off part of his crotch and
I
show
agree.
his penis.
Show his
That would be funny.
Oh, just show his nipple and show the irony in that.
I don't wanna see
I
his
don't
nipple.
find him funny on Saturday Night Live.
Me either.
I think he's just a nasty douchebag who's full of himself, he's just smug, and he just thinks everything he does is so cute, and he mugs, and he's
Justin, I think everything you do is smart and funny and cute, and I don't even know James St. James. We just met today.
And the Resistor of the week this week is
James St. James for resisting
Everything.
President of the United States, Justin Timberlake. It's Jeff Flake, right?
Right.
Well, yes, Jeff Flake, Senator Jeff Flake, Republican Senator Jeff Flake, who's known as a conservative, right?
Point, counterpoint.
Right. No, he stood up and he made this impassioned speech on the floor of the Senate, and it was Churchillian. It was like the St. Crispin's Day
But
speech.
here's the thing. Trump's not going to listen to a long speech like that, number one. And number two, he's quitting. He's running away.
That's
And
the
that
part that's hard.
incenses me so much.
No. But
What?
it's a drip that we've got Corker, we've got Flake, we've got Claire McConnell or whatever. We've got
Collins
and McCurks.
We got a lot of people whose name we can't remember.
Right. No. But it's a slow drip that the Republicans are finding their voice, and the Republicans are slowly but surely waking up from their stupor and saying, "Look, this is a train wreck." And he did this really. The speech is worth reading. And like I said, it's the St. Crispin's Day speech, as far as I'm concerned. In 100 years, they're going to be showing.
What is St. Crispin's Day?
Wasn't that the Elizabeth I or whatever? No, Henry V. What was that?
I don't know.
No, you do. You were taught it in school. It's the most famous speech of all time.
Give us a quote. Give us a bite.
Well, isn't that the...
30 seconds left in the show.
There's something about Elizabeth I talking about windows in men's souls.
No, I'm not talking about Elizabeth I. It's Shakespeare, Henry V.
25
that's
seconds
what's
left
My
in the
kingdom
show.
for a horse.
Oh, for Christ's sake. Now you've totally thrown me off. We're not talking about...
I've ruined it once again.
As usual.
Are you going to read the quote?
No, I don't want to talk anymore.
Oh. Okay.
Why don't you give us a quote from Jeff Flake?
How about like a moment
No,
of
I
healing?
can't. I feel the moment is spoiled.
Fine, because you challenged me on St. Crispin.
I had no idea. I still don't. I want to know about it.
Well, but that's not what we're talking about, Jeff Flake.
Yes.
Show's over.
He said he said, I rise today with no small measure of regret. Regret because of the state of our disunion. Regret because of the disrepair and destructiveness of our politics. Regret because of the indecency of our discourse. Regret because of the coarseness of our leadership. Regret for the compromise of our moral authority, and by our and all of our complicity in this alarming and dangerous state of affairs. It is time for our complicity and our accommodation of the unacceptable to end.
And then he hands in his resignation.
We are not made great as a country by indulging or even exalting our worst impulses, turning against ourselves, glorifying in that which divides us, and calling fake things true and true things fake. And we did not become the beacon of freedom in the darkest corner of the world by flouting our institutions and failing to understand just how hard and vulnerable they are. The spell will eventually break. That is my belief.
I think we have to leave it at that.
That's all we have time for today. Tune in to Big Frida Bounces Back, Tuesdays on 10 p.m. at Fuse. Real Estate Wars every Thursday, 10 p.m. on Bravo. And set your DVRs now for the return of $1 Million Listings Los Angeles.
Yay!
Thursday, November 2nd, 9 p.m. Bravo. Hey, this just in.
Uh-oh.
Tickets for RuPaul's DragCon Los Angeles 2018, which will be May the 11th, 12th, and 13th.
Wait, May the 11th, 12th, and 13th?
And 13th,
Three days. Never before 3 days.
At the convention center. Will go on sale next Friday, November 3rd. RuPaul'sDragCon.com. Hey, all these stories and more, the WoW Report.
Yes.
WorldOfWonder.net.
You can watch this
Radio
on
Andy.
YouTube.
Yeah, you can watch it on our YouTube channel.
We
WoW
decorated
Presents.
the table for Halloween. Sorry.
And of course, you can listen anytime on the Sirius app.
Yes.
Hey, until next time. Same place, same time next time, James.
Here we go. Yes. Oh my God. Yay.
Until then, go out and do something that makes the world go
Wow.